Okay, everybody, hello, and welcome. I appreciate everybody being here on this brutal Friday. It's Friday. I am doing well. Hopefully, you're doing well. I tell you what, I've been having major issues. Yesterday, we had a nightmare with StreamYard. We were trying to do night prayer, and for whatever reason, it kept kicking us off. I could not figure that out at all. So, it was just one of those things. It just kept kicking us off. I don't know, Mr. Producer. I gotta figure that out. So happy Friday to you. We're going to have a very cool show. Looking forward to it. They're going well. Hopefully you're doing well. Hope everybody's doing well. Let me give you a couple information, some things to know before we get into the presentation of the show. It is Friday. Any day is a Friday. It's a good day. Okay, if you want to go to my website because you're really bored and have nothing else better to do, well, you can certainly do so. It's bishopjameslong.com. All right. Actually, Carolyn, I would get the Blue Letter Bible app. You can download it. It's free. And that's a really good app. So bishopjameslong.com. Head on over there and check out the site because you're really bored. And there we go. It's easy. Now, I want you to do something that's more important than anything. I want you guys to go to our sponsor's website. And here it is. KGRAD as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. KGRADB.com. I need you to make sure you do that, guys, because that's very, very important. When you go to KGRADB.com, then what you're going to do is you're going to want to put a really cool click on the store button or merchandise because there, my friends, they have a really cool selection of, I'm pulling it up right now. They have a very cool selection of the Sacred Division items. And, shop. It's KGRADB, and you'll see it right there. And it says, click on the shop button. When you click on the shop button, you'll see my name, Bishop James Long. If you click that, then it takes you to all the very cool items that we have. Some beautiful St. Michael items, shirts, hoodies, candles. Really, there's all kinds of stuff there. It's a lot. There's a lot of really neat items, sayings that I've always talked about that I kind of live my life by. So if you go to KGRAD, D as in dog, B as in bicycle.com, and click on shop. When you click on shop, click on Bishop James Long. Now, I want everybody to know before the trolls start, of course, because they don't think you deserve to earn a penny. Because if I lived in a cardboard box, they'd say I don't deserve the cardboard box because they're so full of, demons. 100% of the profits, the proceeds that I would normally receive from KGRADB marketing the Sacred Division show, I am donating 100% of those proceeds to an amazing organization that I really absolutely admire and respect. They are an organization that is in Africa. They do have a legitimate orphanage, and I know a lot of us get these. I have an orphanage, send money, and you're like, okay, yeah, right. No, these are legitimate folks. They do have an orphanage, and they are what they do for the children. So seriously, we have to help people. We have to help, and that's what's so important. Now there are some people will say nasty things because they just refuse to actually help anybody else. But we, the people who actually have love in our hearts, we want to help others. And that's what we do. So 100% of the proceeds goes to this organization. And we are very proud as a community to do this. And I am absolutely convinced that, there is, Marie. I tell you what, there are a lot of, if you got to be careful, especially on TikTok. There are people that will steal my name and steal my picture and then tell you that I'm on some African safari and that I need to raise money for this orphanage and all this other stuff. And so obviously I'm never going to send you a message asking you for money. Never have, never will. I don't go online asking you for money. Never have, never will in 25 years. So what you got to do is obviously just simply go to that profile. And if they don't have nearly 800,000 followers, they're not me. It's pretty simple. But there's a lot of fraud out there, a lot of fraud. And all you got to do is, so if you, by the way, if you ever get that email from somebody that says Bishop James Long and has my picture, just click on the profile. That's all you got to do. It takes you to the TikTok profile. If they don't have 780,000 followers, it's not me. I mean, it's not that complicated. So just, yeah, but I don't own TikTok. I can't control it. And very good question, Gabriel. Here's why we turn off the chat during Bible study. And it's a very simple answer. Because people come in here and say some of the most god-awful, venomous, disturbing, disgusting things. And we don't allow people to come in here into this platform and blaspheme God. We're not going to have it. I'm not going to have it. And so we put sub chat on because I'm not interested in entertaining or enabling people who are so demonically influenced that they're going to come in during Bible study and say blasphemous things, and you expect me to leave the chat open so they can have a platform to do that over my dead body. It'll never happen. Just like I would never appease a demon, I would never appease someone who is demonically influenced under any circumstances, because that is demonic influence. And there is no other. And if you are normalizing abnormal behavior, then the problem is with you, not with me. And it's very abnormal that clergy can't even perform, or can't even, present Bible study without people coming in saying some most god-awful things. Oh, no, Gabriel. It's all, no, Gabriel, I appreciate, no, that wasn't a direct to you, Gabriel. And I appreciate the question. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to answer that. But a lot of people send me some really aggressive messages because I put sub chat on, and I'm not going to put up with it. We're over the trolling. We're over it. I'm not going to. We're done. We're finished. So that's how we do this. And anyway, but folks, please do us a favor. Go to kgradb.com. And I really want you to go to this website. And if you would, I know it's asking a lot, but they have, seriously, they have beautiful, I'm looking at it now. They have beautiful St. Michael items. And like I said, it goes 100%. It's the, for those of you who want to know, I have to put my glasses on because that's the problem when they do have nice hoodies. They have really neat. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Producer, putting it there on everybody else. But the charity that we are going to donate to is the MKS Kids Foundation. So the MKS Kids Foundation, they're great people. They are just. I got to speak to the person who spearheads this, and he is just beyond. Truly beyond humbled and happy that our community is doing this. Our community. No, they're not safety glasses. They're actually reading glasses. But anyway, so, and that's what we're doing as a community. Is so when you buy items, you're supporting this community. I'm supporting this community, and KGRADB Radio is supporting this community. So the MKS Kids Foundation, and they are a charity foundation, and so they just do a great. I saw them actually on TikTok, and I thought, okay, here's another orphanage. What's the story behind them? And I actually learned a little bit more about them online, and their legitimacy. And then I got to speak to the individual who's in charge. they give kids, let me just say this: our impoverished children are, in comparison to many others, live quite well. There are countries where the impoverished children, they don't have medical, and it's pretty amazing if they get any form of protein whatsoever, or for that matter, clean drinking water. We turn on the faucet and we have clean drinking water, allegedly, but a lot more than many others. So no, it's not on the link tree yet because I've got to fix that. But what you got to do, all you have to do is KG. So if one of the moderators could put that in there, KGRADB.com. KGRADB.com. And if you guys just click on the shop link, that's all you got to do. Thank you, guys. There it is right there. Yep, they pinned it for you. And just click on the shop, and then you'll see my name. And they have all kinds of really cool items. And then, of course, if you want to go to the church's site, you can certainly do so. The church's website is usocc.org. So usocc.org. That is the church's website. And there we go. I'm going to have to get me a Sacred Division mug, because that's pretty cool, actually. The Sacred Division is a show that I started 23 years ago. And yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. So that's the information for you guys. And hopefully you'll go there and you'll support the kids. Also, you'll be supporting the sponsors of we use their platform. And it is, it's interesting, Mr. Producer, when I'm looking at the screen over here on the StreamYard, I don't see that Wi-Fi. It's only when I log into mine, which I don't understand, that I see the Wi-Fi icon. I don't get it. It's got to be something. Yeah. So I don't know. All right. Tonight, folks, we're going to have a very cool show. Let's get into it because we got a lot to cover. And this is Paranormal Friday night. So, well, thank you there, Mark. So this is Paranormal Friday nights. This is what we're doing here. All right. And this is on Friday night and Saturday night is more secular. So for those people saying you need to preach the Bible, well, you need to come to Bible study. We've only been doing it for how many years now? So Sundays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Bible study. Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we pray for one another. We have night prayer. 2 nights of the week, just 2, is devoted to secular, fun, happy, kind of a thing. And that's what we do. So our Friday nights are tonight. So the topic, I have a presentation that I'm going to do. So for those of you who are new, what we do is I always do a presentation. And I teach about something. And then we go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and do this because I'm getting goodbye, trolls. Okay. So sub chat is now on TikTok. Too bad. All right. Listen to this. This is very interesting. This topic, a lot of people have no idea that this, in fact, is a true story. And this is the possessed nuns of Loudun. This is actual real story, friends. And when you hear this, you're going to be thinking that this is just a science fiction or a scary novel, that this is fiction. It is not. It is true. So we're going to give you a brief overview, basically, of Loudun, France in the 17th century. Talk a little bit about the town and the whispers of relics, morality, the supernatural, and the Ursuline convent. This is a place of spiritual devotion or perhaps secret horrors. To understand the first part of it, I'm going to talk about the historical setting of this Loudun, France. It was France under the Louis the 13th. There were a lot of religious tensions and even political unrest. Now, the role of the Catholic Church during this time had a lot of power, had a lot of control, and some people would even argue repression. And the Ursuline convent in Loudun daily life, spiritual discipline, but also isolation. So, I mean, they had their daily lives of work and prayer. They had discipline of spirituality, and it was, some people would even say it was very traditional, but they were so isolated from the public. And when you're talking about the socio-political environment, there was suspicion of heresy, witchcraft, and even dissent. So you take all this in consideration when it comes to society. People were being accused of heresy. A lot of people were being accused of witchcraft. And you see the beginning of a dissent of people walking away from the Catholic Church for a variety of reasons. And some of them were 100% legitimate. So that's the first part. Now, the second part that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about really the core at the horror here. We're going to talk about Sister Jeanne d'Angers, the prioress, and the arrival of Urbain Grandier, the charismatic priest who was actually accused of witchcraft. There was a tremendous tension between the clergy and the nuns and laity. And then we have, we're going to talk about the outbreak of bizarre behaviors. Really bizarre. Violent fits, screams, and even unexplainable adult behavior episodes in the convent. And the third part, we're going to talk about the phenomenon of demonic possession. So we'll talk about how some of them had physical convulsions or speaking in tongues and even levitations. And some would argue that this was divine punishment or demonic infestation in this particular convent. There were eyewitnesses and testimonies to what they saw in this convent. Now, the fourth part we're going to discuss are the accusations and the trial. So there was a massive witch hunt, and there was accusations against this priest. And so therefore, and also we're going to talk about the influence of political revenge and personal vendettas. Well, thank you there, Flynn. And we're going to talk about the trial. Thank you, Zanto. And then the verdict. So that's how we're going to break this down. And then the fifth part, we're going to obviously talk about the impact on how this crazy episode impacted the aftermath, the legacy of the town of Loudun. Thank you, Trish. And even the church's response to the scandal. And by the way, there's been books written about this, theatrical, cinematic adaptations even. John Whitting's play and Ken Russell's film, which that's a different story altogether. I've seen it. It's kind of, whoa. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the psychological explanations, hysteria, mass psychosis, and perhaps maybe that being explained, the possible motive behind these accusations. Okay, imagine, let's get into this. The first part. Imagine a quiet, fog-shrouded town in the heart of France, Loudun. Now, Loudun was nestled amid rolling hills. Its streets, it was silent beneath the gloom of dawn. And then centuries ago, the early 17th century, this sleepy, peaceful, calm village was the actual stage for a spectacle of horror and a mirror that reflects humanity's most profound fears. So in this remote corner of the world, cloaked in spiritual devotion and superstitious whispers, there's a story that's unfolded that I think shakes the very foundation of faith and reason, even sanity. It's a story where angels and demons, they seem to dance on the edge of perception. A line between God's truth and human madness was woven into this existence of terror. And it was. The ancient stone walls of the Ursuline convent, it housed women that they swore to live a life of prayer and silence. Discipline was something that they even committed on themselves, the self-discipline. So they would go to the prioress and say, I need to whip myself because I have committed XYZ sins. And this group of people were very strict. Yet behind those walls, something very sinister was waking. Something that would challenge not just the ability or the stability of the small little town, but the very nature of belief itself in a convent. So what secrets could possibly lie that's hidden in the shadows of history? What whispers of darkness echoes through the centuries, warning us about how fragile our grasp is on reality? Can be especially when fear, power, and unyielding faith collide. So we're going to step back into this haunted past. It's a world where the sacred and the profane clash. This is an insane, true story where innocence is betrayed, where the very notion of truth is lost in the screams, the shadows, the whispers from the darkness. So for those of you who saw the video that I put it on TikTok, the background video, yes, I mean, these nuns, they look terrifying. If we could only imagine what people experience, we're going to get it. This is insane. So France was under Louis the 13th. There was a lot of religious tensions. And as I meant, there was a lot of political unrest. And many people, again, you got to keep this in mind, they were accused of heresy. They were accused of witchcraft and dissent from the Roman Church. So the Roman Church at this time was beginning to lose its power and control. And a lot of people decided to walk away from it. If they did, they were immediately called heretical. Some were called accused of witchcraft. So this was rampant in this small town. You got to keep that in mind. Imagine a remote corner of France, Loudun. It's in the early 17th century. So 1605, 1610. But the year actually is very specific. In 1610 or so, people started getting a little intense with the witchcraft and accusing people of heresy and witchcraft. And the year is 1632 now. So everything led up to this. You've got to keep this in mind. But the echoes of an older and much darker world that still linger. It's a world where the unseen forces of good and evil clashes in the shadows. So in Loudun, the divine and the devil walk a very thin line. The church's power and influence is absolute. You don't question it. Its voice shaping laws. It had morals and the very fabric of daily life. So people live in constant reverence. But beneath this pious facade, whispers of fear and suspicion, it even rippled like hidden currents through the town's cobblestone creeks or in the streets out. So the Roman Catholic Church at this time is both a spiritual sanctuary, but it's also an iron fist. It holds sway over kings and commoners alike, was very wealthy. It seals confessions behind heavy velvet curtains and enforces its rules with unwavering authority. You didn't question it. It's different than it is today. So, because remember, at this time, the church had power, had secular power too. So that's meaning that they can accuse you of witchcraft and arrest you. So the church's teachings, they're not just spiritual doctrines. They are the law of the land, and you did not question it. Okay. So within the stone walls of the town, tucked away from the prying eyes, is the Ursuline convent. Now, in the Ursuline convent, there was a place of it was a place of cloistered nuns. They wore white garments. Their lives were completely and totally dedicated solely to prayer and service. It was a haven of silence, devotion. Every breath, every gesture is an act of worship in their minds. And it was also a place of, like I said, extreme isolation. So you didn't go and mingle with the nuns. That didn't happen. That was a time for them to cloister together and pray every single day. There was no, it's so different than it is today. So stringent. But as we all know, silence, as they say, can hide secrets. And in this quiet sanctum, in this very quiet, very holy, sanctified place where silence and prayer, that's it. Strange whispers began to surface. So there were reports of unexplainable noises, like a faint scratching, even a sudden cry of a tortured soul. It began to spread like wildfire. And so some say that these were just mere hysteria, products of an overzealous imagination. Others whisper that darker forces were at work. What was interesting, in nearby towns and villages, stories of demonic possession and witchcraft, they're common. And accusations fly. Families were torn apart during this time, and brave or even desperate individuals undergo exorcisms in which they were not even possessed. But what would happen is the church would claim someone has some type of demonic attachment, and they would say, yes, 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 I do, please, because if they didn't and they would fight with the church, then the church would say, well, you're involved in witchcraft. So they would appeal to the church's kindness to perform these exorcisms. It was just rampant at this time. So into this climate of suspicion and fear comes Urbain Grandier. Now, Urbain Grandier, he was an elegant. He was a very charismatic priest. He was handsome, he was clever, and his reputation is built on charm and wit. So he quickly gains influence over the townspeople and notably over some of the nuns within the convent. He was highly respected, very intelligent. He knew his theology. He was charismatic. People were just naturally drawn to him. When he had his homilies in the church, people were, they said they were stirred with emotion with the Holy Spirit, and some people would cry and some people even clap, which was unheard of at this time. This guy was pretty much almost a rock star, a celebrity status, if you will, within the church. And there were many people that also went to church that found him to be very attractive. Widows were attracted to him. Women were attracted. Men wanted to be him. But Grandier's influence is not welcomed by everyone, because within the church hierarchy, rivalries simmer beneath the surface, because some saw him as a serious threat, a man whose popularity might challenge their authority. So beneath the veneer of piety, thank you there, old grudges and even political motives began to stir. It's amazing to me that there was nothing, I read as much as I could on this priest. This priest said nothing at all that would make anybody think that he was under demonic influence. Thank you, Susan. That he was possessed. There was nothing. He just began to develop quite a following. And soon the tranquility of Loudun is shattered. Thank you, Starla. For those of you who have no idea what I have friends that are offering gifts on TikTok, and I thank them for that, so thank you. So now this priest shows up, and the hierarchy of the church are feeling a little threatened by him because he's becoming quite popular. Some, because of their own personal issues, have a problem with him. And now this tranquility of Loudun is just shattered. The nuns, quiet, modest women, sworn to chastity. So they were sworn to celibacy. They began to behave in ways that terrify and bewilder the townspeople out of nowhere. Thank you there. Thank you, Heather. Out of nowhere. These nuns that were always respected, always quiet, always prayerful, began to behave really strangely. And that didn't happen until this priest showed up. It didn't happen until the upper power that be within the church began to express their concern. See, this is what now you're understanding. Remember, this is a priest. But when you have people that have real power and they begin to express concern, you begin to express concern. Because you can't speak out against the power. Because if you did, then you were bewitched. See, that's what we're dealing with here. So the nuns began, because the higher the power, the higher ups in the church began to express concerns over this new priest because he was developing quite the reputation. So the nuns began to scream in the night. They began to thrash, convulse. And then some people claim that they went into this strange trances. Their eyes allegedly shine with a wild, unnatural light. And they began speaking in guttural voices, even sometimes in languages that were long forgotten. And again, this was a convent where it was very respected and the nuns were revered. And all of a sudden you have now the nuns who are quiet begins to convulse, scream, fall on the ground and have convulsions all of a sudden. So some declare that the nuns are possessed by demons, that they were under the control of evil intelligences that were seeking to corrupt the sacred walls of the convent. Now, that's a serious accusation and they took that was not, these days today, you talk about, poor Susan. Why was Susan, Susan, I got you, Susan. Yeah, you got to be careful. Even if you're a subscriber, if you are mean, you're going to be muted. Okay. So anyway, back to the story. So others then whisper that these are signs, warnings from heaven, like punishments for mortal sins or the work of the devil himself. So I have no idea. So what happened, hold on to your questions, Rebecca, in just 1 second. Let me get this lecture and then I'll open the questions just for you guys, and then I'll open it up for everybody later on. So some began to say, no, this is not demon possessed. This is God punishing. This is a warning for mortal sins. It says this is what's going to happen to you if you have all these mortal sins. So the church then responds immediately with exorcisms. So that was obviously a rite. There were rites performed to purge these spirits from the bodies of the possessed. Keep in mind, the church declared that these nuns were possessed. Now that's different than what's called a deliverance. A deliverance is when a demonic has attached itself to a person and you have what's called demonic attachment. So you pray a prayer of deliverance, a removal of that demonic. That is different than saying that person is now possessed. So the church said these nuns were possessed, and it required the solemn rite of exorcism. It's interesting. We'll get to it, I promise you. So the rites were performed to purge these spirits from the bodies of the possessed, the nuns. Unfortunately, each exorcism, they only deepen the mystery. And then fingers point both ways, toward dark forces to something more human, more sinister. You know where this is going. So at the heart of this chaos is a confluence of faith and fear. It's an invisible war between God's light and allegedly demonic darkness. And the shadows began to lengthen over Loudun. So does the sense that something ancient and terrible has awakened within these stone walls that was not there before this priest showed up. So the question remains, what is truly happening behind these windows? At what cost? So part 2 of this conversation, we're going to talk about Sister Jeanne des Anges, the prioress, and the arrival of Urbain Grandier, the charismatic priest. And there were tensions started between clergy, nuns, and laity. And we're going to go into a little bit more detail of this outbreak of the bizarre behaviors, the screams, the violent fits, and unexplained adult behavior within this convent. So deep within the cold stones of the walls of Loudun convent, the atmosphere thickens. There's thick with secrets, shame, something that's far darker than mere human frailty. So at the heart of the unfolding nightmare is Sister Jeanne des Anges. She was a prioress. She was in charge of the convent, of the Ursuline convent. See, to her sacred charge is to uphold the virtues of faith, to shepherd her flock, the sisters of her nuns, through prayers and penance. But behind her calm facade, there was a storm that was brewing. So Jeanne is a woman of fervor. So again, she was the prioress. She was in charge of the convent. Her devotion was unshakable. Her authority in the convent is absolute. You didn't question her authority under any circumstances. Perhaps it was too absolute. She's not easily challenged at all. And she had very stern eyes. She never missed anything. But beneath her watchful gaze, whispers echo disturbing rumors of unrest among her nuns. So it began subtly. So people, and I talked about this a minute ago, the townspeople began to complain of strange sounds in the night. The clutching of heads, eyes rolling back into their sockets. And people said that they began to see the nuns convulse violently. The limbs began to twist as if like caught in unseen webs, and voices, unearthly voices, poured from their mouths in guttural tongues. They called out sins, curses, and even cries of terror. This is crazy. And some claim that these are simply fits, hysteria, brought on by long hours of prayer, the pressure of cloistered life, perhaps the stress of the times. Because everybody was so worried that they were going to be accused of witchcraft. But other whispers that what was happening is something far more sinister, that there was a visitation from demons or evil spirits seeking to corrupt the holy sanctum. So one night, Sister Marie begins to scream. Now, you've got to understand, guys, this is a person who, this Sister Marie, she was very loyal, very quiet. She begins to scream. A very high, piercing cry that echoed throughout the halls. The townspeople could hear it. Her body arches, her face contorted in agony. Her eyes fluttered open, white, all white. And then she speaks, not in her voice, but in a deep guttural tone that the nuns said made their blood in their veins run cold. I mean, it was terrifying, they said. And what happened is Sister Marie, who was a very devoted, quiet nun, screamed, "I am possessed." And she said, "The darkness has taken over me. The demons are here." So the other nuns watch in horror because Sister Marie then begins to thrash around, her body racked with convulsions like she was having a seizure. But she began to foam at the mouth. And then her arms and her legs were flailing wildly. Her voice changes. They said less her own, more chorus of shrieks, and they described it as chorus. So they would multiple pitches at the same time. So it's more of a chorus of shrieks and growls that seem to emanate from the depths of hell itself. Here's the problem. Sister Marie began to do this, but she's not alone. Because now Sister Anne, another very quiet, devout woman, never ever had any issues before, never showed any signs of instability or emotional, nothing. She begins to behave the same way. Her limbs began to jerk uncontrollably. Her face, the nun said her face just darkened, contorted with earthly rage, unearthly rage. Contortion in someone who's possessed is very normal. That happens quite often. The body contorts in a way that's very unnatural, but so does the face. It looks serpentine. It just contorts very unnaturally. So she begins to do this. And then a voice after voice rises from her, crying out in the name of the devil, an unholy chorus that terrifies all who witness it. And for those of you just tuning in, we're talking about the insane, terrible story, the real, true historical, the history of the possessed nuns of Loudun. That's in France. And this was well documented, by the way. So this was not just some, people pretending to write a novel. No, this actually happened. And so, yeah, again, Sister Anne and Sister Marie were both very devout in their faith. So in these dreadful moments, the line between human frailty and supernatural possession blurs. Some of the nuns, witnesses, they see divine punishment. Some say it's a test of faith, a form of divine purification. Thank you. Remember, these were very devout nuns. But others said, no, this was something more terrifying, a true demonic invasion, aiming to corrupt the holy order from within. Hello? So the convent's atmosphere shifts. Remember, this was once a place of silence and prayer. Now echoes with screams, chants of exorcisms, and even the heavy footsteps of priests summoning forces that they did not fully understand. So, and as these possessions grew more violent and unpredictable, the question lingers, are these acts of God's anger? Thank you. Or are they crafted by malicious spirits seeking chaos? The nuns, the prioress, are they victims of some dark power beyond their control? Or are the seeds of corruption already taken really deep root within their souls? Now, I want to talk about the phenomenon of demonic possession. We're going to talk about the physical convulsions, the speaking in tongues, levitations, even the church's perspective. Was it God's punishment or demonic infestation? And also, we're going to discuss the eyewitnesses' accounts and testimonies. Now, so as the nights lengthened in Loudun, so did the terror within the convent walls. The whispers of evil grew louder in this small town, and the phenomenon unfolding before the eyes of witnesses haunted their very souls. The first signs often appeared as, again, subtle tremors. And that's how they would describe it. That these nuns, before they would go into these possessed stage, if it's transient possession, they would begin to have a tremor. That does occur. Now, we have many, many years since the 1620s till now to understand possession a bit more. And many times when you begin praying, the person is not under the stage of possession. There's called transient possession and perfect possession. Transient possession is when the demonic will enter the body and leave at will, but the person remains under the stage of oppression, or the demonic is constantly attacking them to keep their will and intellect at a very limited, low level, so they can't fight back. So many times when you perform an exorcism on someone who is under transient possession, that person is not under the stage of possession. So an exorcist will do things to force the entity to manifest. One of the signs, one, is the tremors. And when I read this in the case file, that immediately stuck out to me. So they would have subtle, in their documentation, they would describe it as subtle tremors, and then sharp spasms in their limbs, almost like a knee or your leg would jerk, something like this. And the eyes began to staring unblinkingly, like into a void, almost like it's some type of issue that the person is having. That absolutely could have been a neurological condition. But with the other symptoms they were having, we have some things going on here. So they don't go into like this trance where they wouldn't blink. And soon these signs spiral into unthinkable acts, actions that challenge every understanding of nature and God's grace. So Sister Marie, as we talked about, she was a very gentle, composed, suddenly erupted into screams, her body arching backward with a force that seemed inhuman according to the reports. Her limbs stiffened, jerked uncontrollably, and her mouth opened wide. No sound came out. Only guttural growls, like some beast that was struggling to feed. And her body convulsed with violent spasms, thrashing against the wooden furniture and the stone walls. Her eyes were very wide with terror. And they said also it glowed with an unnatural light. And her voice, when it finally emerged, was not her own. But when she would scream in her voice, I am possessed by the darkness, the evil that lurks beyond the veil of heaven. But it was not her. And then Sister Anne slipped into a terrifying trance, her face contorted as if fighting an invisible grip, her body twisted very unnaturally, spasming in ways that no human anatomy should permit. And when she spoke, her voice was very deep. She did not have a deep voice, guttural, filled with a menacing cadence that sent shivers through the eyewitnesses. There were eyewitnesses who witnessed. There were doctors who were there who witnesses. And during one exorcism, Sister Marie's body floated several inches above the ground. Her arms outstretched, her voice echoed with an otherworldly timbre. Oh, I got to do a little puzzle. There we go. And sometimes she would even curse the church. She would shout obscenities, scream in languages that no one understood, Latin, Greek. And her face drained of humanity, the doctor said, bore an expression of pure malice. So the nuns, the priests, even the most hardened witnesses could only watch in horror as this unholy transformation unfolded, and an outward sign that some dark force had taken root within her. So witnesses recounted the voices, these demonic utterances, and they often accused priests, denounced, innocence, and reveled in chaos. And some stories said that the nuns twisted, even sometimes even attacking near objects or even individuals. One voice screamed, "We are the children of darkness. We have come for your souls, your flesh, your prayers, your very faith." And then amid these screams and thrashing, the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. It seemed as if the very air, one person said, crackled with electricity. and the walls trembled with the weight of evil. That's how they described it. And many who witnessed these horrors believed that the possessed nuns were vessels, unwilling hosts, through which the demonic intelligence sought to defile the sacred. Now, the nuns' bodies grew gaunt, exhausted, and their faces pale, sweat profusely. Eyewitnesses speak of their strange tremors, disjointed movements, otherworldly strength that they displayed. See, all these check the check mark of possession. Some would faint only to awaken with a terrible look of terror, knowing that they'd have been caught in a grasp that was not of theirs, that in control. Now, the priest, desperate to save their souls, performed exorcisms, Latin prayers, holy water, sacred relics, but that only seemed to feed the flames of torment. So were these true possessions, demonic forces clawing their way into the mortal realm? Were they manifestations of psychological torment, mass hysteria, manipulation? Well, some people say yes. Some people say it was all psychological torment, mass hysteria. If that was the case, mass hysteria and psychological torment cannot cause you to levitate. It also can't cause you to scream in multiple pitches at once. Now, what is certain that within those stone walls, a darkness lingered, an unearthly presence that was stirring beneath the surface there. And as the night fell over Loudun, so did the veil between the sacred and the profane become thin. Now, there's accusations, and this is where it gets problematic, as if what they were experiencing wasn't enough. There began a witch hunt. There began accusations against this Father Urbain Grandier, this charismatic priest. And the influence of political revenge and personal vendettas began to stir up. So there was accusations, confessions, exorcisms. And we'll talk about what happened to this priest and the fate of the nuns. So the terror in Loudun could no longer be contained within the cloister. Rumors spread like wildfire across the town, infecting every single corner with suspicion and dread. Whispers of witchcraft, demonic possession, even treachery, carved silent scars deep into the community's collective psyche. So, but what truly ignited the inferno was the moment when accusations turned from whispers to accusations, when the whispers became a formal charge and a legal religious verdict that would condemn the innocent and perhaps the guilty. So Father Urbain Grandier, the charismatic priest, unofficial leader of Loudun's spiritual life, was at the very heart of the storm. Now look, his influence was undeniable, but it also made him a target. So Jean des Agnes, the very strict prioress, and her faction believed that Grandier, who had openly challenged some of the church's authority, posed a direct threat to the reigning hierarchy. They claimed he used his charm and influence to sow discord and sedition. Oh, now this is getting good. So as the night drew darker, accusations then began of witchcraft and even demonic involvement against Grandier began to surface. Whispers that he had entered into satanic pacts, that he was the mastermind behind the possession of the nuns, and that he conspired with evil spirits to overthrow divine order. That was serious. Remember, this was a different time, friends. You got to remember this. This was a time where you did not question the authority of the church under any circumstances ever, because they had secular power. You got to remember that. Secular power means that when you question the power or the authority of the church or its leaders, you could be accused of witchcraft and then been sentenced to death. That is how serious this was. So the townspeople, already rattled by the bizarre and violent episodes, they grew increasingly convinced. The faintest sign, an unkind word, a heated glance became evidence of guilt. That was it. The line between reality and hysteria blurred, and hysteria clung like an oppressive fog. So soon, the time for judgment arrived. This is insane. The grand courthouse in Loudun became a chamber of chaos. Priests, lawyers, accusers, witnesses, they were all assembled in trembling anticipation of justice, perhaps chaos. This was in 1635 or so. So Grandier, standing defiantly before them, faced accusations that sounded almost surreal. He was charged with sorcery. He was officially charged with sorcery, with consorting with demons, and with the terrible crime of inflaming the possessed nuns to acts of violence, because he questioned some of the hierarchy of the church. So testimonies poured in. For those of you, there was a lot of waste. There was a lot of things that the church was doing at this time that Father Grandier didn't like. And he was very charismatic, and he was very critical of some of those things. And he was right in his criticism. So testimonies began to pour in, some from the very nuns themselves, whose words trembled with fear and even madness. They screamed, "He bewitched us," they claimed. "He's the master of demons, the corrupter of our souls." Other witnesses claimed to have seen Grandier performing secret rites and casting spells, or whispering to the spirits of the darkness. So the courtroom echoed with stories of seizures and shouts, of ink-blotted confessions, and of accusations that painted Father Grandier as the very embodiment of evil. And the courtroom became a madhouse, an arena where reason and chaos took over. So throughout the trial, confessions, both coerced and voluntarily given, poured forth. Many claim to have seen Grandier's familiar spirits, as they called it, small demons or swarms of insects flying around him, whispering dark secrets. Imagine this. You're outside and you're walking on a path, and people saw insects flying around this man, and that was enough to claim him of being demonically influenced. The court listened to the horrific tales of ritualistic rites and secret chambers, of the casting of curses, pacts made in the shadows, all alleged that Grandier did. Some witnesses recount how the possessed nuns, under the influence of these alleged spells, had attacked themselves and others, and their bodies racked with supernatural strength and demonic forces. But yet, as these tales spiraled into hysteria, just as quickly doubts arose. Some skeptics believed that passion was a collective delusion, mass psychosis fueled by fear and jealousy, the desire for revenge. So, after many hours and days of testimony, the court rendered its verdict. Father Urbain Grandier was found guilty, though the reasons were shrouded in uncertainty, and he was sentenced to death. He was to be unalived by the sword, his life to be taken to purge the evil they believed grudgingly resided within him. Imagine this, a priest, highly respected at first, questioned the authority of the church, those bishops and other people that were in power, that were abusing their power, and he had some legitimate issues. And because of that, so on the day of his unaliving, a large crowd gathered, and they were staring in silence. in anticipation of what they called divine justice. So the blade fell, ending his life, decapitated, but leaving behind a trail of questions that would endure long after. Was he truly the mastermind behind the horrors? Or was he the scapegoat, a victim of a town gripped by hysteria and perhaps manipulated by those in power eager to settle personal vendettas? The trial, by the way, marked the tragic climax of a society that was consumed by fear of the devil, divine punishment, the chaos that lurks beneath the veneer of civility, or what they called civility. And so amidst public executions that fractured lives, the story of Loudun's possessed nuns, their misguided hunt for evil, became a cautionary tale, an eerie reminder of how easily fear can turn justice into chaos and trust into treachery. Now, in this section, we're going to talk about the impact, what happened on the town of Loudun, the church's response to the scandal, medieval notions of possession and modern interpretations, and even literary and theatrical cinematic adaptations, notably John Whitting's play and Ken Russell's film. So the echoes of Loudun's dark chapter did not fade. Believe it or not, imagine that. It didn't fade with the dying of Father Grandier's execution. No, the shadows cast long and deep, touching every corner of the town, reaching far beyond into the depths of history and even the human soul. The convent, after Father Grandier passed away, or was unalived, the convent was silent. But the memories of screams, possessed nuns, unholy voices lingered like a toxic fog that refused to leave. The town was forever scarred by the horror that had unfolded within those ancient stone walls. Now, many survivors carried the weight of shame and guilt, haunted by their role in condemning an innocent man. Or perhaps, maybe he wasn't innocent. Maybe he was making a pact with the devil, or by the fear that their own faith that betrayed them. So the scandal rippled through the entire region, shaking the very foundation of belief. Clergy and lay people alike questioned what they witnessed. Was it God's punishment? Was it demonic possession? Mass hysteria fueled by petty jealousies, the power struggles? So in the aftermath, the church's stance was a bit ambivalent. Think about that for a moment. One of their clergy was unalived. Ambivalent. Some leaders doubled down on their doctrines, framing the affair as a divine warning. Others whispered doubts, concealed behind their clerical robes, wary of the chaos that they had fueled. But you would never speak out against it. So families who once trusted the church found themselves torn, some believing in God's justice, others suspecting manipulation, conspiracy. And the town of Loudun was forever marked by the scars of that terrible, terrible story. So the decades turned into centuries. The story refused to fade into obscurity. And the haunting tale of the possessed nuns of the tragic downfall of Urbain Grandier became a potent symbol, enduring exploration of faith, madness, and human hysteria. It inspired writers, artists who sought to grapple with these dark themes. Now, the plays of John Whiting, the harrowing film by Ken Russell, the countless stories and legends echoing through the corridors of time, all owe a debt to this terrible saga. The story became a mirror, a reflection of humanity's vulnerability to the forces of suspicion, repression, and even of the dark allure of the unexplainable. So today, in the age of psychology and scientific understanding, many interpret Loudun, the events as mass hysteria, a collective psychological phenomenon fueled by fear or social pressure, hysteria that spun out of control, spiraling into a self-fulfilling nightmare, very similar to the Salem witch trials. Now, yet some scholars and even spiritualists refuse to dismiss the possibility of genuine supernatural forces, of evil powers manipulating the fragile minds of the afflicted. It remains one of history's most disturbing enigmas, and it's unsolved. It's a relentless question about the thin line separating faith and madness. So, what lessons does Loudun hold for us? Perhaps it reminds us how easily fear can distort reality when combined with authority, insecurity, and repression. How susceptible the human mind is to suggestion, and how the boundaries between reality and nightmare can be dangerously thin. Friends, the possessed nuns of Loudun, the condemned priest, the tragic town, they serve, I think, as a haunting reminder that sometimes the greatest horror lies not in demons or spirits, but rather within ourselves, within the fears and secrets that we do not dare confront. So, as you know, the story of Loudun remains etched into history. It's a dark mirror held up to our own fears, a story that whispers to us in the shadows, beware the power of hysteria, faith, and the uncharted depths of the human mind, and unchecked power and control. Yeah, years have passed since that dark chapter in Loudun's history, no question. But the question remains: were these possessions genuine? Were they genuine manifestations of supernatural evil, or were they the product of human minds caught in a web of fear, suggestibility, societal pressure? I'm curious about what you guys think. If you think it was true manifestation of supernatural evil, just put 1 in the chat. If you think that this was all mass hysteria, put 2. So everybody, no matter what chat room in, if you're on all the other social media platforms, if you're on TikTok, 1, demon possession. If you believe it was 1, demon possession, or 2, mass hysteria. But you know what? Maybe on TikTok we could do it. We haven't done this in a while. Maybe we should do a poll. There you go. I would be curious if any of the moderators could create a poll. Do you think that this story was possession or mass hysteria? All right. So our moderator Bill is going to put a poll up. Everybody, I want as many people of you to vote, because I'm really curious. So while you guys are doing that, we have 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, all the above. So remember, 1 is possession, 2, mass hysteria, or 3, both. Well, I want to do this. That's a good idea. Okay, let's do that. That's fair. So we'll do all 3. 1, possession. 2, mass hysteria. 3, both. That'd be pretty interesting. I would love to know what so our moderator Bill is going to put a poll up in a moment, TikTok, okay? I would definitely want you guys to vote, because I would love to know this. Well, thank you. So Dr. Campbell says both. There's a lot of you saying both. So do you think the story was 1, true possession, 2, all mass hysteria, or 3, both? A lot of you are saying both. Okay. There it is, friends. For those of you who are on TikTok, and I'll let you guys know what TikTok says. Right there, TikTok, on my screen. Make sure you click there. Click that. The poll is up now. We have less than 2 minutes, 1 minute and 40 seconds. Vote, everybody. Vote on TikTok. I want to know what you guys think. Vote right there, because I would love to know what you guys think. So make sure you vote right there, and then we'll tell everybody what your vote was. So modern scholars have long debated these mysteries. Psychiatry and psychology suggest that what was seen and heard, the violent convulsions, voices, visions, may have been mass hysteria, a collective delusion fueled by repression and the power of suggestion. But remember, these were nuns. These were individuals who dedicated and consecrated their life to God. They chose to go into the convent. This was completely and 100% out of character for them. Out of character. These were nuns who embraced silence and prayer. Now, in a society that's rigidly controlled by dogma, as it was, where deviation from the norm could mean exile, imprisonment, or even death, the mind seeks release, sometimes through visions, seizures, even fabricated memories. A shared anxiety, a sense of impending divine punishment, a call can all ignite a cascade of physiological and psychological responses, according to those in the medical field. It is believed that in the confined, oppressive environment of the convent, the women's fears and frustrations found expressions as uncontrolled seizures and voices, a product of their subconscious longing for liberation. But okay, all right, here we go. We have 127 votes. 19% says it was possession. 17% says it was mass hysteria. 64% believes it was both. Wow. Thank you for putting that poll up. See, that's pretty amazing. 64%. You know, so I think it was fair to say it was pretty even between possession versus mass hysteria. 64% say it was both possession and mass hysteria. So once rumors of demonic possession steeped into the community's consciousness, took a life of their own. The priests, eager to exercise the evil, might have inadvertently deepened the hysteria within the rituals. This is why, friends, I always say, anybody who performs an exorcism on someone without having a psychological evaluation, it is wrong. It is wrong and it is irresponsible. Plain and simple. And I tell you this because if a person suffers from dissociative identity disorder and you perform an exorcism on that individual, you can create another identity. If a person is in a paranoid state, you can feed into that psychosis and that person could do even harm to themselves. This is irresponsible to perform an exorcism on anyone without having a psychological evaluation, unless you are a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Now, in saying this, if you see someone levitate, that's not a form of mental illness. So, you know, we can understand that. So the priests, the prayers, the incantations, perhaps unintentionally, some people say, became psychological triggers. So the nuns, believing fervently that they were possessed, unconsciously reacted as if they were. Their bodies obeyed, their voices mimicked the fears echoing in their minds. Now, and beneath, by the way, but lurking beneath the surface, some suggest even darker motives. Was this mass hysteria exploited? Did individuals in power manipulate events for personal gain? Revenge against Father Grandier or others who challenged their authority. See, remember, historically, the accusations against Grandier or of witchcraft may have been as much about settling old scores, about uncovering truths. Jealousies, political ambitions, personal vendettas simmered beneath the surface, waiting to erupt at the right moment. The priests and administrators, eager to maintain control, could have manipulated the narrative, stoking fears, encouraging accusations, orchestrating the spectacle that condemned an innocent man. The possessed nuns became pawns, that some people say, in a larger game. Yet beneath These explanations lie even darker possibilities. Some believe these events reveal a collective subconscious, a society battling its own fears and repressions. The women's physical and emotional outbursts, their screams, unearthly states, could have been manifestations of deep-seated guilt, shame, or an unarticulated craving for expression. In a society where female agency was suppressed, where obedience and mandated and questions silenced, the convent became a cauldron of unspoken rage and despair. The possession could have been a desperate cry for freedom, a rebellion against their prison of silence. I don't necessarily agree to that. But what of the supernatural? Could these phenomena truly have been demonic manifestations, signs of unearthly evil reaching into our world? Or are they relics, remnants of an ancient human instinct, fear, guilt, suggestion, disguised as spiritual battlegrounds? Perhaps the truth is somewhere in between. A tempest of psychology, societal manipulation, genuine belief, perfect storm that blurred the lines between reality and nightmare. See, Loudun's possessed nuns whisper to us still, reminding us of the fragile boundaries that separate faith from madness, truth from illusion. The story asks you, when we face the unknown, are you seeking God's answers, or are you confronting the shadows of your own minds? The enduring horror of Loudun, what does it tell you about human nature? The thin line between faith and madness. So the tale of Loudun, the possessed nuns, the fallen priests, the townspeople driven to madness, remains etched into the very history. I mean, a haunting echo. It refuses to fade. It's a story that challenges us to confront the darkest corners of human nature, faith and fear. It reminds us how the line between the sacred and profane is fragile, blurred, often easily shattered. I think it's a warning, a sign what can happen when minds are subjected to the pressures of repression, authority, superstition. Or is it a reflection of the terrifying depths of our own subconscious? The unseen forces lurking within us all, waiting for a moment of weakness to surface. Perhaps the true horror isn't merely the possession or the unaliving of the priests or even the hysteria. Perhaps it's the realization that in times of fear and chaos, our collective psyche can turn against reason and compassion, unleashing forces that no power can fully control. The possessed nuns, with their screams and visions, serves as mirrors, reflecting a society caught between faith and madness, between God and the demons we fear within ourselves. So with all that history, and I'll get to my reflection in a moment, with all that history, all that darkness, what do you see when you look into the shadows? Do you see evil? Do you see yourself? Our fears, secrets, uncontrollable impulses? Are we too susceptible to the whispers of hysteria, to the pull of fear that can turn truth into fiction? The story of Loudun teaches us, I think, the greatest horrors often lie not in demons or spirits, but within the fragile human mind, the dark corner of society's collective soul. It warns us that when faith is wielded as a weapon and ignorance reigns, the innocent can fall, and the very essence of our humanity can be stained. So as we walk away from the story, remember the shadows are never far away. They lurk behind our complacency, waiting for moments when our defenses are weakened. We should beware of the shadows, within and without. Because in the end, the true story of Loudun is not only what happened there, but what can happen anywhere, whenever fear and suspicion take hold of the human heart. And that, my friends, is our presentation of the possessed nuns of Loudun. Now, I believe, based on what I saw in the reports and everything that was reported, I believe it was mass hysteria. I do not believe that this was possession. primarily because one question that I want you to ask yourself: who were these witnesses? Who were these doctors? If the higher ups of the church said this is what's happening, you didn't question it. The doctor that allegedly witnessed this event was Roman Catholic. The witnesses were all Roman Catholic. And therefore, they knew that there was an accusation against this priest. And they knew that if, in fact, they spoke out against, that they too could be a defense, an accused. I don't think there was levitation. I think that the witnesses had a little influence, and I think based on what I saw, here's why. So they claim that it was the priest. Fine, fair enough. And unaliving the priest allegedly fixed the problem because the convent all of a sudden stopped. That, my friend, is a red flag, because demonic possession would not stop just with the unaliving of a priest. The possession would have continued. They wouldn't have said, well, that was easy, and left. Nope. That's not how possession works. So the fact that everything stopped once this priest was unalived tells me that this priest was innocent. And that activity just all of a sudden stopped. Just stopped. That, my friends, is proof to me that this was mass hysteria. It was fear, and also the prioress was known to be very, very respectful and paid allegiance to the higher authority of the church. When the higher authority of the church made it known to her that they did not particularly like this priest, then to appease the higher authority of the church, then you have this activity, because they all knew, every single one of them knew, that if you did not go along with this type of behavior, that you could be accused of witchcraft. So I do not believe at all that they were possessed. I don't believe that there was levitation. I don't believe that, in fact, that there were multiple voices coming from the nuns. I think this was because the authority of the church did not like Father Grandier, because he questioned their authority. And so they used the nuns as pawns. And that's what I think. Which is a shame, because that means that a priest lost his life for questioning authority. That's how much power. Well, he was known to be very handsome, very clever. You could even say ambitious. So if this was true possession, then the possession would not have stopped with the unaliving of this priest. It just wouldn't. And so the exorcisms were not successful. Everything stopped at the unaliving of an innocent person. Now, could it be the fact that demons influenced this to attack an innocent priest? Absolutely. No question about it. No question about it. But does that necessarily mean possession? No. No, not at all. So that's the issue. I think that demons used the weakness of the power-hungry authority at that time, and they were. I think they used their weaknesses, and I also think that they used the weaknesses and the fear that the nuns had with never questioning authority under any circumstances. You just did not do this. So I think that's what happened, friends. I don't believe that this was possession. And I believe that an innocent man was unalived because he questioned authority. And he was gaining quite a reputation. It's a sad story. To me, I think it's terrible. But it is a setup. I think it was. I think it was 100% was a setup of the higher ups. And so, but that's what happens when you, see, you have to understand that's what happens when you have the church that had secular power. You can never have that. Never happen that. Never. You can never have that again. Because when the church has secular power, that means you can be accused of witchcraft. Completely innocent. And yet you would never be able to defend yourself. Never. Because the church had the sole authority. So it's not, no, there's no book on, there's not a book. I'm gonna let everybody chat on TikTok. We'll see how long that'll last. Be nice. If it's not, I'm putting sub chat on right back on. So if you want to look this up a little bit more, it is the possessed nuns of Loudun. And you can go online and you can look up, there are books written on this. No, but there are books that are written on this particular case. You're very welcome. The possessed nuns of Loudun, Loudun, Loudun. Okay, see, a lot of people get angry with why would God allow that to happen? Friends, you know the answer already. We have free will. You cannot give someone free will only if they exercise that making good decisions. And it's not free will. That's the whole point of having free will, meaning that you can choose to do good. You can also choose to do evil. So if it is free will, then you have that choice to make. If you create something and say, okay, I'm going to give you free will, but you can only choose to do good, then it's not free will. It's not free will. Well, the priest is in heaven. There have been a lot. Let me tell you something. And here's the truth. Here's the truth to this. There were a lot of innocent people, during the Salem witch trials and this whole, witch hunt. There were a lot of people accused of practicing witchcraft that were 100% innocent. And the church took their money. The church took their property because they had secular power. So there were a lot of innocent people who lost their lives, who lost everything because of this mass hysteria of witchcraft and being accused of witchcraft. So that's the problem, folks. So that's the big issue here. But we will be responsible for the actions that we do here on earth. So therefore, while you do have free will, yes, we do, exercise it with intelligence. Because if you don't, that's a problem. Okay. All right. No, Josh, the Ursuline convent of Loudun is no longer, it was demolished. Actually, so for those of you who know, after the events, it was demolished. The convent was demolished. And so, yeah, it's no longer there. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. It's a terrible story. And what makes it even more frightening, friends, is that it's a true story that this priest lost his life for power, greed, and thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for being here, everybody. Okay, now I want to remind everybody, we still have 20 minutes, but I want to remind everybody that tomorrow we have the Sacred Division Weekend Edition. Weekend Edition at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mr. Producer, we're going to have to figure out why it is that when we run the show on Friday night, I do not see the Wi-Fi on this screen. We're going to have to, I don't know why. I don't ever see the Wi-Fi. When we do a Friday night show, I don't ever see the Wi-Fi icon on the screen here. But every time I run it, it always shows Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi is turned off. So it's got to be in my Google or my Chrome settings. It's got to be. And I don't know what I got to do to turn it off. But every time it shows Wi-Fi, I sent you that video. I don't know why it does that. So, DM saying, anyone else find the urge to watch scary movies on Friday nights after watching this? Yeah, that is correct. IER, George. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be here. We're not done. So, well, I don't know, Mark. That's a problem on Mr. Producer. He's behind the scenes. It's not showing it, and I'm hooked up directly to the Wi-Fi here. So or to the modem, I should say. Okay, listen to this. Now, so we'll be here tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we are going to have the Sacred Division Weekend Edition. Weekend Edition. We're basically talk about a lot of articles that we didn't get to tonight. We're going to talk about several of these articles right now and go from there. If you like 3D movies, speaking of movies, if you're a fan of 3D movies and you like those horror movies, yes, folks, it is Friday Night Paranormal. So we're going to talk about these things. People always ask me, do I think watching a horror movie is going to possess you? No, because if that was the case, then millions of people would be possessed. I've watched horror movies before. Most of them are quite terrible. There's a lot of people that watch horror movies that are not possessed. The Sacred Division. The Sacred Division is a show that I started. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Tracy. I've never seen it. The Sacred Division is the paranormal show that I started 23 years ago when online radio was in its infancy. The Sacred Division between the good and the evil. And that's where I came up with the name. And so I've done the paranormal show now for 23 years. Now, so let's talk about this. This is by Eduardo Oriedo. The 10 best 3D horror movies. If you like those 3D movies, then here they are. First one on the list. He says he lists this as number 10, actually. Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension. It was made in 2015. So as the final entry, I'll get your questions in just a second, guys. No, Lord of the Rings, no. So as the final entry of the Paranormal Activity series, The Ghost Dimension closes one of the most profitable franchises in cinema. The story follows some family, Fleege's family, who moved into a new house and discover a video camera and mysterious tapes. When using the camera, they capture supernatural phenomena connected to the cult demonic forces from the first film. Besides expanding the mythology and providing answers to the plot, The Ghost Dimension became one of the best 3D horror movies by using 3D technology to make supernatural events more immersive. Number 9 on the list, according to the act of this article. What's it? Oh, yeah, well, that's true. I agree now. So Mr. Producer is saying, what about movies that use Ouija boards, which might encourage curiosity? Not a good idea. I am a very strong opponent of Ouija boards, have been for years. I've taught against Ouija boards for 23 years, will always speak against Ouija boards. They are evil. There's nothing good that will come from the use of them. And for those of you who are using it, I would encourage you to stop immediately. It's not a game. And you don't know who you're communicating with. Listen, my friends, let me just say this very clear to you. The planchet, you put your hands on the planchet, right? And you ask the spirit to control your hands so you can move the planchet. Do you understand that's possession? That is possession. So no, I would never play with a Ouija board, ever. So, Mr. Producer, let me know about this. What you think about? Is there a help me if you can help me figure out if there is a something on Google Chrome that I need to click on. I'm sure it is because it keeps showing Wi-Fi when I log into it. The next movie, number 9, is Piranha 3D, 2010. It is Piranha 3D is a horror film and with comedic elements. Its plot follows a group of people at a resort who encounter prehistoric creatures. I've never seen it, don't know it. Filled with bizarre moments of gore, stands out with its use of 3D. So I am going to see the Ritual. I am going to see that. The next movie, if you want to watch a scary 3D movie, Shark Night, 2011. It is, with 3D technology, one of its main attractions. Shark Night delivers an impactful experience featuring brutal shark attacks, ranking it among the best 3D horror movies. All right. The next movie, number 7 on this list, Saw 3D, 2010. And again, these are 3D movies. These are 3D movies. Okay. Saw 3D, 2010. 3D technology was a novelty in the Saw film, aiming to bring more immersion to the audience. Known for heavy gore, the series reaches a new level by projecting. Oh, shut up, Siri! Shut up! I didn't say Siri. Go to sleep, Siri. I tell you what, this is what artificial intelligence. I didn't never even mention Siri's name, and now she's starting to talk. Be quiet, little heifer. Anyway, for I was rudely interrupted by AI. The next one is 6, The Final Destination. Yeah, go to sleep. The Final Destination, 2009. People are saying, you shouldn't be talking about this. We're all adults. Grow up. We're all adults. I'm not saying go watch them. I'm presenting, according to this author's opinion, scary 3D movies. We're all adults. If you don't watch horror movies, then don't watch them. Anyway, following the format of earlier installments, The Final Destination centers on Nick O'Bannon and his friends who avoid a deadly accident. All right. Number 5, Horror in the High Desert, 2021. Horror in the High Desert is an independent horror film that focuses on the mysterious disappearance of Gary Hinge. Okay. I don't know most of these movies. Number 3 is Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, 1991. Nefarious is very good. It is. I've said that as soon as I saw it. I immediately went on, did a movie review, and I've always said Nefarious is the closest that you're going to get for a demonic presence, no question. So Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Number 2 is My Bloody Valentine, 2009. I don't even know what that is. With 3D technology as a primary component of the story, the remake of My Bloody Valentine stands out. So it's there's a bad person on Valentine's Day? I mean, really? Have we? Really? Are they not? Do writers just? Oh, okay, that's dumb. Anyway, number 1. The number 1 on the list, Friday the 13th, Part 3, 1982. I remember when this came out. I remember it. I also remember going to the drive-in, watching this movie. I remember, yes, the drive-in. I remember that. That was a very interesting movie. That was scary. Friday the 13th, Part 3. Let me tell you something, guys. I very clearly remember that movie, and I remember the 3D. We were just shocked. So, yeah, that's number 1 on the list if you want to watch Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D, 1982. So, yeah, isn't crazy? I remember that. I remember that movie. I remember those glasses, those red and blue glasses. Yeah. Okay, yeah, The Rite was very good. Actually, I actually interviewed Father Gary Thomas. I had him on the show. And that's the movie. The Rite is based on his life, and I had him on the show. I did an interview. Maybe one day I'll play that segments of that. Maybe we'll do that again. So So again, don't forget tomorrow, we're not leaving yet, but tomorrow, oh, thank you very much, Zara. Thank you for the dinosaur. Thank you. Tomorrow, we're going to be here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Sacred Division Weekend Edition. A lot of articles we're going to be talking about. And on Sunday, I want to remind everybody that we're here with Bible study. So for those people who are saying you need to talk more about God, you need to show up for Bible study because we've only been doing it for how many years now. So Bible study is every Sunday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. We have Mass only on TikTok at 6 p.m. Eastern. And then Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern, we have night prayer. So 5 days a week, that's it. We dedicate 100%. Okay. The new Conjuring, I haven't seen it. To be honest with you, I haven't seen it. I'm just, to be honest, after the first one, I was kind of like, eh. Only because I know Andrea Perron. I'm friends with Andrea Perron. Andrea Perron is a sweetheart of a soul. She lived in the Conjuring house. She actually lived there. She grew up. So if you actually, if you want to know the true story of the Conjuring, then buy her books. There are 3 books. House of Darkness, House of Light. You can go on Amazon. And I would encourage you to purchase them. Because if you really want to learn from a person who was there, well, she grew up there. She remembers everything. I did. Yeah, we had her on. As a matter of fact, she's on next. She's on KGRADB radio, and she has a show right here at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So she's kgradb.com. Now, by the way, I want to say this again because we have a lot of people who just came in. Folks, you make sure you go to our sponsor's website, kgradb.com. kgradb.com. Make sure you do that. Click on the shop link. You'll see my name. If you click right there, it takes you to the Sacred Division merchandise page. Please, we have really amazing Saint Michael items, and I'm going to talk to them about Saint Benedict, but Saint Michael, really beautiful Saint Michael items. Purchase them if you would. 100% of the profits that would go to me, we as a community, we are donating that to the MKS Foundation. It is a children's foundation in Africa who helps orphan children. They're a fantastic organization, and I want to help them as much as we possibly can. They are a legitimate organization. And so why not? Let's help them. So go to KGRAD, D as in dog, B as in bicycle.com. Do you believe Annabelle is actually possessed? No. Demons do not possess items. Demons attach themselves to those items for a variety of reasons to cause as much havoc as possible. Like a house cannot be possessed. There's no such thing as a possessed house. You can have demonic infestation. You do not perform an exorcism on a house. That is absurd. You bless the home. You perform an exorcism on the demonic entity that has infested itself within the home. So Valerie says, why help others when people in this country need help? Well, Valerie, so I guess we can't help the people, the kids in Africa who have nothing at all because the people in this country need help. You know, I don't know. I wonder what Jesus would think about that. I wonder what Jesus would say. I know what he would say. You should do both. Because it should not be an either or situation. Because when you do an either or situation, then that, my friend, is when you start getting into superiority. Well, let's help our own before we help them. So if everyone thought like that, then they wouldn't receive the help. Now, would they? Anyway. Before I was rudely interrupted. Ridiculous. Okay. Yeah, we should help both. How about that? I think that's what Jesus would probably say. Yeah, thanks for muting her. I don't want to talk to her anymore. Okay. What's your questions? Yeah, we'll do a couple questions before we close out shop here. All right, Elizabeth, you have an important question. You said you've had an important question a couple times. Okay, great. Andrea is doing better. She's doing well. She is, Mr. Producer says she's a fighter and will beat cancer. Amen. Amen. Thank you, B. Thank you. What do you think of the stories of the exorcist and the casting experiencing strange vision? What do you think of the stories of the exorcist? Of what are we talking about? No, I don't believe we're in Matrix. No. Any suggestion about seeing Annabelle? I'm going to see Annabelle in October. So I'm going to the Scarefest Paranormal Conference in Lexington, Kentucky, where I'll be giving a presentation, and I will be seeing Annabelle. I will also, by the way, this September, we moved it up 1 month because I'm going to be going to the Paranormal Conference in Lexington. I'm going to be going to California, and we are going to be at the Queen Mary, one of the most haunted locations in the world. And I will be doing a live show on the Queen Mary. So that'll be very, very exciting. So so do you believe that when they wiped Jesus' face that it came back into his hair? Yes, you're talking about Veronica's veil, Elizabeth. Do you believe that when they wiped Jesus' face that it became immaterial? You're talking about Veronica's veil. And yes, I do believe in Veronica's veil. I also believe in the Shroud of Turin, without question. Okay, yeah, Andrea's live from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. Okay, got it. So there we are. And you can watch them on KGRADB YouTube, or Tube to the U. Whoops. Okay. So yeah. All right. Now, friends, I'm going to remind you, don't forget, that's going to be in September, John. I don't have a specific date yet, but I am. Oh, thank you very much, Sarla. Thank you. So for those of you who are listening to this on podcast, I say good night to you guys. Okay, I'm going to remind everybody that tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do have night prayer. So I hope that you can join us. We would love for you to be there. I am going to upload this right now for everybody on podcast. By the way, don't forget 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. I'm sorry, tomorrow. But for those of you who are listening to the show and watching the show on KGRADB radio and all the other social media program besides our friends on TikTok, remember I tell you all, your value does not decrease based on a troll's inability or refusal to see your worth. You're priceless. Don't let any troll tell you or convince you otherwise. And remember, never accept criticism from someone that you would not go to for advice. So you wouldn't go to these trolls for advice, would you? So why in the heck are you accepting their criticism? Don't. Hopefully we'll see you guys next week.